Our guest today is a successful podcast host, an entrepreneur, a keynote speaker, and someone that has a passion for building brands and monetizing them. I'll be honest, Tej, back in the day, I used to just think a brand was a logo. But I think I heard one of your talks at a property event and I was like, wow, I kind of had my mind opened up to what branding is. So I'd like you to kind of share a little bit about what branding is, it's more than just, a logo and a storefront.
Yeah, so branding, I think nowadays you can think of it as it's a new word for reputation. And, whereas back in the day, you'd kind of have one reputation, which is in person. What do people say about you? What do people say when you leave? And that's it. There was no Instagram. There was no social media. There was no back chat, apart from gossip. Nowadays, you've got that reputation, which exists as your physical brand, in person at events, how you come across, if you match what's online. And then you have the other half of reputation, which is your digital reputation, which is your brand, which is how do you come across on the internet? How do you come across digitally? How do you come across, when you're talking about your business, when you're selling your services? Yes, logo, colors, website, fonts, this is all part of it. It is an important part of it. One that I think people get maybe too hung up on, but all of that plus what you're like in person forms together to form this cohesive thing, which is your brand, which is something that represents you, represents your business. It's your storefront. There's businesses who just have Instagram pages, Facebook pages turning over millions a year, don't have a website. Their logo's a little bit crap, but they have a great brand in what they do. And they're building that reputation. And also, something I think that we see more and more is people being one thing online, but then in person, totally separate. And that's where a lot of brands will kind of fall apart.
So as a lot of our listeners are kind of freelancers, they're photographers, videographers, maybe graphic designers, what could people like me and those listening focus on? What key elements should they look at when building a personal brand, which is obviously, like you say, when you show up to events or whatever else it may be?
So I think, your industry, I think, is probably the easiest one because it's visual and most platforms are geared towards some type of visual content. Now, one thing that a lot of people say is, oh, I don't know what content to post. I want to build a property brand, but I don't know what to post. And it's like, content is probably one of the easiest things to generate, and there's AI tools, ChatGPT, give me content ideas for the month.
Yeah, don't use that at all, honest.
All right, which can help you massively. But people always, the number one thing is, I don't know what content to produce. Now, you in your sector and the people in your sector, everything you produce on a day-to-day basis is your brand, is your portfolio. If I'm going to hire you, is it based on your personality? Yes. Is it based on your website and logo? Yeah. Really, it's based off, is your work good?
Yeah.
Are your photos good? Are your videos good? Because if it's not, you can have the shiniest website, the best sales process, the best marketing team. But I'm going to say, yeah, but your work's crap. Why am I going to want you to do my event? And so, people in your industry really need to focus on building brands around your day-to-day work. If you're passionate about what you're doing, you're going to be sitting there on Photoshop designing stuff in your spare time. Post it. That is the best content. A work in progress, going from your first sketch to the last one. You're covering events for like a property being built, going from the foundations to the paint to the furniture. Like showing that is the most important thing for a personal brand in your sector. I think it's the easiest sector to do it in.
So what's your thoughts on being on camera? The reason me and Mitch started this podcast is because we wanted to put our faces out there, because we're always behind the lens and we wanted to connect with people through this, and like attracts like, your vibe attracts your tribe. How important do you think that is for, us? For me, for instance, I use stories a lot, and when I'm on a shoot, I'm just saying I'm here today, blah, blah, blah. And there are some creatives that are really are not keen on doing that. I mean, how important is that?
So depending on the specific role that you have, the importance varies. So if you are a graphic designer who is going to be 99% of the time sitting behind your screen, not really having client meetings or impact or being on site, then it's okay. You can more turn the camera around and direct it on what you're doing. If you're a videographer and photographer, something where your personality matters more, you're potentially going to be in discussions. You might have to try and get people to smile who don't want to, like wedding photography, you might have to try and work with some awkward people. You might have to, work with different cultures. I think then it's a lot more important to be on camera, because it's great to just see your photos, as I was saying earlier, and to just see your work. But, as humans, yes, I connect with that to here, but I'm going to connect with you as a human way more than any piece of inorganic work, table, for anything. And so for the connection piece and for the fact that, you want someone to buy into you, not just your work, you want them to fall in love with you and the brand and your personality. I want to work with that guy. You need to be on camera, and it could just be stories. You don't have to sit there and do like what we're doing here. It could just be, I'm on site, here I am, blah, 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 really interesting client today. That's it. But just that little bit of personality and seeing your eyes is so important.
Yeah, some advice I always give to people is like, you might not be the best and you might not be the cheapest, but if they like you, they'll book you, right? If they have a nice experience, and a big compliment that I get when I'm on a shoot is like, oh, that was so much fun. Yeah. Like, I had a great time, because you're making them laugh, you're cracking jokes, whatever. And I always say to people that is probably more important than how good your work is. Because how many times have you hired a guy for a labourer or a chippy for some work on your house because he's like, he was great. He might have been a little bit more expensive, but, it's 100%, I think, as important as how good your work is.
Yeah, I think nowadays it is, especially in certain fields like with builders, because them as a species is just some of the worst humans on the planet. So
controversial.
So it's very difficult to find good ones. And so if someone is likable and they do a good job, and they're likable before you've even met them or engaged with them, because, hey, I follow you on Instagram and I've seen your stories for a few weeks.
Yeah.
There's a vibe. You have the sale. It is so much easier to warm people up with being likable. And of course, if you have great work, that it's win-win-win.
Yeah, it's no good. It's no good being likable if you're absolutely rubbish.
Yeah, exactly. Which so many people are, and that's just useless.
Yeah. I'm being a little bit selfish having you here today, because I'm going through a bit of a rebrand, or trying to. It's difficult, but how does someone like me, a videographer, communicate? How do I stand out when there's obviously so many other people doing what I do? What's the best thing using my marketing to stand out from everyone else?
So you tell me, how do you stand out from everyone else? Why should I book you?
Yeah, that's on the spot here. I don't know. I honestly don't know the reason for that. I have a full word of mouth calendar, not full calendar, but essentially I've never advertised. My clients come back, and maybe I should ask them, why do they book me?
I was going to say, you need to go send them a Google form and say, look, please, can you fill this out?
Yeah.
Or you can just got 3 questions. Why do you book me? What did you like about the work? What was easy about the entire process? Or, what was different? Get some feedback from them. And then from that, you'll see there'll be a common theme, whether it's friendliness, whether it's quality of work. And you will know, okay, that's my thing. And actually, being booked up without advertising, that's also not a unique value proposition, but that's a really good tool for marketing. Because if you can say, hey, so my calendar's booked this year. Have you guys ever seen me advertise?
Yeah.
Okay, so how has that happened? Because I'm good.
Yeah.
You don't have to say it as cocky as I just said it,
Yeah,
but you can
I'm
say
the best.
Yeah, like there's a reason. So you can communicate that, because that in itself is, an indicator that you are good and that people are rebooking and that new people are booking. So almost going off that and saying, look, we don't advertise. We're always booked up from word of mouth. That in itself is a big thing. You're showing me that other people rate you. They've co-signed you. So I'm like, I should work with him.
Yeah, I think most of mine are just because, as you know, I've done a lot of work in the property niche, and people have got to the point where they see my work and go, he's the guy to go to, because everyone else uses him. Well, not everyone, but a lot of people use me, so they come to me in that way. So it's kind of like, if they respect that developer, for instance, and they see that I'm using, it kind of pre-qualifies me, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's difficult. I always try, it's something I'm going through in my head with the whole rebrand thing is like, one, the name is the most important thing, trying to figure that out. Don't get me started on that. It's taken forever. I've gone through so many iterations, and then you find something cool and it's gone.
Always the way.
Yeah, always the way. A lot of our audience here are also, and this is kind of how we've started it, are aimed at people coming through, they're just getting into it. They've found their passion for video photography, the creative niche that they're in. How do they start? What would be the first point of them building a brand for them?
Yeah, so I think you know, a lot of these like tech startups and Shoreditch and shit, they always talk about like your brand values and like, you know, the core principles and like, you know, this stuff, it's
Very
important.
startup.
Yeah, like this stuff's important to kind of know, you know, what you're doing, why you're doing it, how you're doing it. So I think at first, before you think about like going to brand, you need to identify what your business actually is. Like, are you in this sector? Are you in quite a few sectors? Are you working in this part of the country, that part of the country? You really need to understand like, what is my business? What are the strengths and weaknesses of this as existing? What are 20 of my competitors doing? And therefore, what should I do or should I not do? Once you have that, your vision of your brand will be a lot clearer. Then we can move to brand and say, okay, well, what colors? Do I want purple because it's like royal? Do I want monochrome because it's like whatever? Do I want red because I want to stand out? Like, then you can start to look at the psychology of the colors. Then you can start to look at fonts. Am I going corporate? Am I going bougie? Am I going like really Roman type new? Like, what do I want to represent? And of course, if you're a wedding photographer or you're a extreme sports photographer, quite different brands. I'm not saying you can't do both, but quite different brands and different fonts and different colors. One is red and yellow and orange and glaring, and one is white and purple
Neutrals
and, you know, neutral and pastel.
nudes.
So yeah, and so, you know, even the font is softer. The website will have sort of softer edges, whereas that one might have more kind of straight edges. It's the little things that you start to form and understand when you know what your business is. And then it could be going on Canva to design yourself a logo. It could be getting one built on Fiverr or something like that, although they're so generic and like overdone now. It could be even going on, like I find when I'm building brands for other people, I go, before even the logo sometimes, I go straight to the website and I start almost like building and messing around with the website to see, okay, what fonts look good here? Because a website really kind of it's like, it is a shop front. So it kind of shows you what colors work together, what fonts work together. It's kind of an all-in-one place where you can see how it all molds together. Whereas straight to the logo, straight to something else, it's quite abstract.
I feel like it needs to come later for sure.
Yeah.
I think that's probably why I'm struggling, Tej, because I'm doing so many different things. As I said, property was kind of like my main niche, but I'm wanting to expand into larger clients with bigger budgets, I guess. You know, property developers, there's a ceiling there, right?
Yeah.
And more recently, been working with a really cool company called Ademchic, but they're interior design, branding and marketing. And we're having really nice conversations with architects, interior designers, and it's kind of branched off the property. But then I'm working with bigger corporates. So it's a bit everywhere at the minute. And I think if I could figure out the direction, it would be much easier. But I think especially early days, you take on a lot of different jobs to find out what you like,
of course.
right?
And you have to.
And that's where the struggle is. I mean, do you be a generalist? You know, what's your thoughts there? Like with you know, someone who's a freelancer, should they niche down? There's two arguments here, and we spoke about it on the podcast before. It's like niching or generalist. There's pros and cons to both, but what would your thoughts be there?
I think I'm tempted to say niche with a hint of generalism. So instead of just being in one niche, it's kind of pick a few that overlap each other.
Yes.
So if it's events, that could be anything. I mean, and you might say, well, that's generalist, but it's not, because you're only doing events. You're not doing a podcast. You're only doing events. And then you might niche within that. You might say, I'm not doing pharmaceuticals. But I am doing these 6, which also means that if your client says, oh, we're not doing an event, but you know, you do all our events, could you come and just do this little whatever we're doing?
Promo inside their business.
And you say, oh, okay, why not? Or your brand is, you're doing events, you're doing these 6 type of events, you're kind of niche-ish generalist. But if you get a call saying, oh, can you do a wedding tomorrow? We're paying 10 grand. Like, you're like, yeah.
I'll be honest, that's the only reason I do weddings. Not that I get paid 10 grand, but because it's a chunk of money. And I don't post those.
Well, then there we go. That's fine, because your brand is not diluted. You could just, oh, hey, I did a quick favor as a wedding, but you don't have to post that.
No,
So it's okay that your brand is showing that, and you not showing the wedding is fine. Like, and you know, who knows? You might meet someone at the wedding who owns a company who you might then do. You know.
Oh, activity creates opportunity is one of my clients.
Absolutely.
And Andy Cook says at Whitebox, that was his thing, and he's so right. Just being at that wedding, I mean, I'm picking up leads on every shoot, especially events, And it's interesting what you say, because I'm kind of thinking that's where I am. I'm kind of niche in the sense of, I do corporate events. I took on a client recently who is in the accident repair. So Gemini. So they're basically 35.
Oh, I know Gemini. Yeah.
Gemini. So if you crash your car and you're with LV or eShore, Gemini will do the works, right? But they then they run events as well. So it's kind of like that overspill. I've also done podcasts for them. So it's kind of like generalist, but within a corporate space.
That's fine. That's
so
still a niche.
Yeah, I think corporate and events. I do a few events, but events can be anything. So off the back of the Gemini one, I ended up doing events in the motor insurance space and insurance space, because they were linked to Gemini. So there's that overspill.
Still events. It's still corporate. Still events. It still fits the niche.
Yeah.
Just a different type.
Yeah.
Similar.
That's it. I think I just don't want it to be confusing for people when they go to your website or your socials, and like you say, if they saw a wedding and then you're doing a corporate event, they're like, well, who is this person? What do they do? But yeah, it's interesting. For me, I feel like if you go too niche, you maybe miss out on an opportunity. But like you say, maybe you just do that and you don't post it and you keep your content online. Yeah,
it depends what... I'd get bored being in like a single niche, so I couldn't do that. I've
noticed if you go to your website, it's like, got to clean it. What, to just run through all the things you do. I know we're talking about branding today.
So podcast, the social media bits. I've written 2 books. I will write a couple more in the future.
And we'll put some links below for all Tej's.
Yeah, definitely. I do public speaking events online, and I much prefer in person. I have a cleaning business, which I acquired about 8 months ago. I'm buying another cleaning business right now to be absorbed into this one. Not too far from this area, actually. And then I'm also buying a food business, like a restaurant business, which should complete in 2 weeks. And then...
You're definitely not niche.
Property. Yeah, I'm not niche, and I can't. It's so boring. Well, I invest and do some other bits as well, but...
Yeah, and I think because I've been doing property for some time now, it's kind of like I need something different, and you need to be challenged a little bit. I feel that I could do that with my eyes shut now.
Yeah.
And I want to get onto shoots where I'm pushed.
You need that. I think as a human and as an entrepreneur, you know when you I know when I have an expiry date. Most times it's 2 to 3 years in a certain niche. So I know with the cleaning business, in 2 or 3 years, I'll have a manager in and I'll be like, yeah, I'm bored of that. Let's keep it running, whatever.
Or sell it.
On to the next. Yeah, we'll sell it and then on to the next. So I just know for myself I have that. And I think a lot of people do have that, but they don't realise. They just think, maybe it's an old school mentality. Oh, I'm supposed to be in the same job for all these years. I'm supposed to just settle down. And it's like, if I change business every 2 years, what? I'm not fussed. Why are you fussed? Do your thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay, so... With me, I don't feel like I've got a brand at the minute. I kind of just got GK Videography set up because I was doing a business expo. And I was like, I need a name. I was literally no website, nothing. But, it's definitely something, as we discussed, I want to get into, is building that. But how can doing that elevate what I'm doing already? Like I say, I've got the word of mouth is good. I'm regular work. But, if I was to have a correct, positive, impactful brand, how could that get me to the next level?
So if you were charging 20% more per customer over the next year, would that drastically change your net profit?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Because your costs are the same, right?
Yeah.
So, this is an example of how you can just call people and say, I'm charging 20% more. I might say, for what? Who are you?
Yeah.
Right?
What am I getting extra?
But if, let's say if I said to you, look, I need 10 grand for a business thing. I'll give you, 6% a year. You go, that's a bit of a shit return. I don't really want to invest in you. If Mark Cuban calls up and says, listen, I need 10 grand, I'll give you 1% a year. 99% of people are giving him the money.
Yeah.
If I don't know,
because it's Mark Cuban.
Because if Cristiano Ronaldo suddenly said, I'm in property, guys, I need $1 million to do this development. Don't worry about the figures. Don't worry about the detail of it. I'm going to make money. I'm giving him money. The brand means that he will get the money. Mark will get the money over you and I. And if we look at this in everyday life, why do people buy Evian instead of Tesco water? Why are people... You can go online and look at jeans by these crazy brands or whatever, these Italian brands. And you can also go on Primark and look at jeans. The Primark jeans cost 12 quid,
yeah, that. Probably, yeah.
And they look, even if you're into fashion, they look exactly the same as the other jeans. And some of these other jeans go for £3,000.
Crazy.
Now, when I say they look identical, I'm not just blurring the line. Like, I mean, they look like they were made in the same place, but that £3,000 pair of jeans, they're selling.
Yeah.
They're in business. You and me might think, what the fuck is this?
It's crazy, isn't it?
But it happens. You look at Audi and Lamborghini. Same cars. Audi's probably better.
Ooh.
Arguably, like the interior is nicer, the tech is better.
But I prefer Lamborghini.
But of course, I'd have a Lamborghini.
Yeah.
Even though the interior is shit, the quality is shit, there's so many things wrong with that car. But it's a Lamborghini. It's Italian. It's not really anymore, is it? It's got this history. It's got this thoroughbred. It's got the prancing horse. So much, not the prancing horse, the raging bull. So much so that they can charge double for the same chassis, the same engine, the same. Audi haven't even changed the UI on the buttons. It's so pathetic, honestly.
Really?
I look at it and think, come on, guys, like make the UI Italian and sexy.
Yeah.
But we would pay more. Now, of course, there's a different perception. Yeah. There's a different look. But at the core of it, we are paying double because of the bull.
Yeah, because
and what
of the
it
brand.
means.
So it's all about perception.
It's all about perception. So why aren't we the raging bulls of our industry? Why aren't people saying...
Maybe that's my new company name, The Raging Bull.
The Raging Bull.
Yeah, I've got it sorted. Cheers, Tej.
Don't thank me. Thank Audi. Thank Lamborghini.
Mate, I've got something to go away with now because, as I say, I'm trying to figure out this branding. So I'm going to go home, watch this, make some notes, and then I'll ring you and thank you. But cheers for coming along, Tej. It's been great. People can find Tej's details in the bottom, but where's the best place to...
Probably tej-talks.com, or if you go tej.talks on Instagram, you'll find me.
Yeah, easy to find, yeah. And next week, we're going to have Tej here again, and he's going to be talking everything about mindset.